Hitachi Social Innovation Forum 2017 this week sets the tone for understanding the digital parameters of businesses and companies that are now in the race to fully leverage digital technologies. The theme for this episode is Digital Transformation, Capitalizing on the Information Technology, Operational Technology Convergence. To shed more light on the theme, we speak to Russell Kingsley, Chief Technology Officer, Asia Pacific, Hitachi Data Systems, and the Executive Vice President, Global Delivery Network, Hitachi Consulting, Feroz Mohammed.
Russell, maybe we can start by talking about LaMotta. It's your core IT platform, and for the sake of our audience, maybe you can talk about what it does, talk about how it's really different in terms of what is available right now in the market in terms of IoT software.
IoT, and I think this launch, LaMotta, was really all about enabling IoT. And one of the things about IoT is it's absolutely huge, right? And everything about it is massive. So there is a massive amount of data. There is a massive amount of connected devices. There's a massive amount of potential application. And so the idea of LaMotta was really to bridge this gap. And this is what Hitachi sort of took on as a mission. Let's try and fill that gap between the infrastructure and, the business solutions. And that's what LaMotta is all about. It's really a framework. It's really a collection of blueprints for particular IoT applications. And it's also a collection of software services that Hitachi can provide. But I think one of the things that's important as a differentiator, if you like, is it's also designed to be an open platform. So the idea is that Hitachi does build some end-to-end IoT solutions, quite a lot, but we're not so arrogant as to think that we're going to be the only ones who come up with those solutions. And so the platform is open to allow others to take advantage of it and contribute to it.
So maybe you can also talk to us about how LaMotta, for example, can be used for different industries in India.
Okay, so, artificial intelligence is one of the most important pieces of this. It's the way that you are going to be able to bring machine horsepower to a very, very large problem. And so this might be, for example, we've recently announced some public safety initiative, which is really around video analytics. Well, artificial intelligence could be brought to bear to solve, quite complex computational thought-type problems, to analyse what is going on in videos, to then be able to provide, meaningful advice to human beings off the system, if you like. But it does rely on artificial intelligence, the ability for a machine to learn, to recognise patterns, and to make inferences is a really important part for, I guess, the scalability of IoT in the future.
Okay, so let's talk about the industrial Internet of Things, IIoT, and talk about how things are really changing as far as Asia Pacific is concerned.
IoT it's an absolute revolution, right? And so you'll quite often hear HDS talking about, and a large number of other vendors talking about digital transformation. What that digital transformation really is at its heart is a recognition that traditional enterprises perhaps have not used data in the best possible way, right? And it's probably been best illustrated by some of the innovative internet-based businesses that have come along and disrupted traditional businesses. By and large, they have done this because they have made better use of data, and they have accumulated a lot of data that we may have traditionally thought was meaningless, right? And they've applied big data analytics practices to this and have been able to make inferences that are valuable to businesses.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we'll be breaking down big data, industrial IoT, and much more in just a bit. But one quick last word with you before we let you go. We are going to be talking about this as well in a bit, but the convergence really of IT and OT, operational technology and IT. And in one word, where is that right now in your mind?
In one word, infancy, right? We're only at the beginning of this process, and we are going to see much more of it.
All right, Russell, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
I will invite you back on stage in just a moment. But for now, can I please invite up on stage Feroz Mohammed. He's the Executive Vice President, Global Delivery Network at Hitachi Consulting Software Services. Feroz, thank you very much for chatting with us. Let's start by really talking about the work that Hitachi really does in India in terms of the consulting software business and what you're doing that's really different from what we're seeing in the market now.
Hitachi Consulting is an integral part of Hitachi Limited. And so I think the way we are different from the competitive differentiation that we have with other consulting firms is the fact that we actually can draw upon the powerful heritage of Hitachi Limited, the corporate power of Hitachi Limited, the institutional stability. But more important than all that stuff, we can draw upon the huge amount of industrial expertise that is there in Hitachi Limited. So what we offer is more like an outcome-based solution for our customers. And these outcome-based solutions have all elements of it. In the new world, I think as businesses transform and disrupt themselves, it calls for a different way of consulting. It calls for what we call as a collaborative co-creation. We don't claim that we solve all the problems. But what we claim is that we have a lot of assets that we can bring to the table.
Okay. Feroz, what is interesting about big data, IoT, and social innovation, of course, is that it's not just companies like yourself which are talking about it. The government on its part has gone all out. They're talking about digital India, they're talking about skilling India. So maybe you can talk to us about how you, for example, are working on innovation and how these programs are really working through you.
We are working on some public safety solutions in India, the video analytics part that Russell just alluded to. So we are working on some of those solutions for smart governance, smart real-time governance. So that's an area that we're working on. We're working with smart cities to build an IT data exchange, a city data exchange. And we're also working at the grassroots levels in some sense. So we are beginning to work with a project called Farm to Fork, trying to work with farmers in India and trying to create a model where we can increase the yield using IoT. The IoT sensors look at various data that comes from the field, the moisture levels and the fertilizer levels and all this stuff, and use that, do a lot of analytics on top of it, and try to improve the yield. So we're working with educational institutions, a lot of educational institutions, the premier ones, where we're actually working with them to enable them to become digital, the talent to become digital much faster. So we're working very closely with the startup ecosystem because we believe that a lot of these innovations are going to come from different sources. Okay. We can't claim that we will solve the entire problem. We'll probably get about 60% of the solution to the table, and we would have to depend on a lot of other people to solve the problem.
Maybe you can talk to us about how CIOs then are on their part using this technology and innovating, especially using LaMotta.
The CIO's role is getting redefined and changed. So till now, the CIO was more about optimizing the enterprise, it's all about cost cutting, it's about IT as an enabler to optimize the business. And from there, I think it's changing quite a bit. It's about as the businesses themselves get disrupted, I think they are looking at means and measures to disrupt themselves. And then a lot of companies have introduced a concept called a chief digital officer. And the line gets blurred between should the CIO become the chief digital officer, should the strategy guy become the chief digital officer. A lot of companies actually have the CIOs take up the chief digital officer role. So that's a subtle shift that we're beginning to see in most of the CIO roles.
Okay, one quick last word then before I let you go. Do you think that the convergence is inevitable?
Yeah, if you look at traditionally the IT part of the world, right? So it was all data driven. It was all about using data to manage the processes. And so whereas the OT part of the house was more physical. It was about building equipment, building products, building machinery and all that. So one turf was the IT, the other turf was OT, and data was predominantly the purview of IT. So yeah, in essence, so there has to be a way for this to come together and converge and be as a unified science, if you will.
Thank you very much for that, Feroz. Can I request you to stay back?
Sure.
And can I request Russell to please come up on stage? We have a short book launch.
A successful digital enterprise requires a change that puts digital at the heart of the business. Hitachi's latest thought leadership book, Engineering the New Reality, reflects just this and examines how organizations can thrive in the new world of digital.
Mr. Ranganath, in one line, how do you think those last mile connectivity issues can really be fixed?
So the primary emphasis should be on executing the technical aspect of the entire digital map. That's it.
After an interesting tete-a-tete with Russell Kingsley and Firoz Mohammed, we bring you a session on digital transformation, capitalizing on the IT-OT convergence, showcasing how IT-OT convergence enables direct control and more complete monitoring with easier analysis of data from the complex systems from anywhere in the world.
Very often when I ask people, what do you mean by digital, and we're going to come to digital in a bit, everyone's approach and everyone's thinking about what digital means to them, what digital means to the industry is different. So maybe we can start by defining IT and OT.
It is about putting IT on one side and reaching out the operational information through sensors and bring the data back into IT, process them together, and even take it back to wherever it is to be used.
Okay, fair enough. So we will discuss a little more in detail about the kind of uses that we're seeing for IT and OT. But Russell, I was asking Firoz this earlier, and I want to ask you, is it vital that we see IT and OT really coming together and the convergence to happen and a successful convergence to happen?
Yes, it is. And the main reason why is because the IT side of that equation is what's going to be able to provide us with the ability to make sense of everything that comes in from the OT side. You know, when I think about the future of doing things more efficiently, making improvements, doing things more perfectly, we have to have IT in the equation with OT. I think it's essential.
Okay, so we've heard from both the private sector companies on the panel, and I definitely need to come to you, Mr. Ranganathan, and ask you, talk to us about how the government really views IT and OT, and about how PSUs are really viewing IT and OT, and about what their approach really is.
The way I would like to see it is that it's the inevitable evolution. In fact, if you look at the entire thing in its broadest sphere, don't you think that the IT component should automatically wither away as a concept and only the OT remains? Whatever effort that we have been doing as an IT effort, what was the philosophy behind all of it? You are aspiring to do something which becomes easy and everything becomes automated. You are talking of sensors and other small devices. What are they all about? Ultimately, that is what you are originally contemplating to do and achieve. So this IT component of the development process, the way I see it, was one single stage in the entire evolution. Probably another a few decades down the line, the concept of IT won't be there at all. It's only the OT that would be there, which you take it for granted. So I would look at it that way, that convergence, inevitably it's going to happen, but operational technology would take the component of IT as a minuscule, inevitable component, and OT is something which will remain for a longer period of time.
Any thoughts, Russell, on that?
Yes, I think that's right. I think right now we are calling this IoT because as if it's something special because it's kind of new, but it will inevitably be rolled into OT as a matter of course.
Firoz, let me come to you. And while Russell is saying that companies are increasingly now looking at collaborating between IT and OT, do you still think that IT and OT are being developed as separate systems, and therefore, while we are saying yes to convergence, we are saying that there has to be more work that happens between the two, that the business sense really for collaborating has to be seen as being urgent and vital?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, as you said, today it's like completely two different realms. So now I think there has to be an osmosis. People from this side need to understand more about software. People from the software side need to understand more about this. And as I already pointed out, right now there are no clear standards. So I think over a period of time, there will standards that will emerge on this coalition of IT and OT. There will be new standards that need to be evolving. And LaMotta is one such attempt at it. I'm sure there will be more such attempts, and it's going to get refined over a period of time, so it's going to evolve.
Okay, I will come and ask you about LaMotta in just a bit, but before we go any further, Binod, maybe I can ask you to talk about what is going to be, in your mind, a successful IT-OT collaboration and integration. Is there a checklist that companies can follow?
Let me give you a reply based on two examples. Say if you look at one of the large telecom companies when they're trying to onboard customers, they use a paper method. You have to submit a form, and that form goes through n number of hands, and then finally you get a SIM card which gets enabled over a period of time. Now the whole transaction could last a few days. Now, here is a new company, which is again a telecom giant, who has just used the IT/OT component in what they wanted to bring in. They brought in eKYC, where the whole cycle collapsed to just 2 to 3 minutes of processing. In a country like India, when you want to do things much faster, you have no choice but to use these kind of methodologies, these kind of technologies, putting it to use and making things much faster.
Is there anything that you'd want to add to that?
Yes, I think that's very interesting, right? And the concept of a telco embarking on eKYC, that's Know Your Customer for people unfamiliar, it's amazing to think that telcos didn't already know their customer. The IoT trend gives them an opportunity to try and redress that. They should know more about their customers. So that concept, I think, is extremely valid, and that's kind of a IoT application in its own right.
Okay. Before we come to talk about some of the solutions that are possibly available, and I'll come to you on that, Feroz, Mr. Rangnath, I'd ask you to comment on the people aspect of training people within organizations to make them more ready for IT and OT and the convergence.
Yeah, it is very much warranted, but at the same time, I can speak for myself from our experience, in EPFO. Interestingly, people were much more ready, actually, because when we're talking of the KYC aspect of the integration, the IoT operationals component, we already have introduced that as a regular feature from this year onwards, where we have integrated for our pensioners the collection process of the life certificates, which we take annually. But they were supposed to go to the bank and then deposit it in physical formats once in a year in the month of November. We have tied up with with the CSE, that's the which has given us access to about 170,000 points of presence all across the country. So the person need not come to our place and then or go to the bank and deposit. We have integrated with UIDAI, with the Aadhaar, and the collection of the life certificate has become online. So that's one part that has really worked out well, and people have taken to it. And we really did not invest too much, either from the financial part or even from the time aspect. We introduced it, simply left a few instructions on the site, and people have taken to it. So that's interesting, and people are aware of technology. For service providers like us, it's easy, it's not difficult. The only challenge is how smartly are you able to cope up and give it to them, whatever they're expecting. And that's actually the challenge, the way I see it.
Okay, let's move on and talk about the Internet of Things as well. And Feroz, maybe I can ask you to come in to talk to us about not just the Internet of Things, but we are also now talking about the industrial Internet of Things.
IoT is, it can be more on the consumer-facing side. Things that you see today, the automation that you see, let's say, you would have seen that Amazon Go video that went viral, right? You go into a store, pick up stuff, it automatically deducts adds to your cart, so it knows that you have picked up a person, and you can check out and move out. And let's say any other customer experience IoT. But the difference here is all this is related to the B2C part of it, the consumer part of it. The industrial IoT is something that deals more with the machines part of it. So it is machines to machines talking to each other, machines to humans talking.
Okay, let me in fact at this point go to my very exuberant colleague Sumit Lakhutia is in the audience, and he has a quick audience poll.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that, Sunanda. Ladies and gentlemen, if you bring out your phones and you know the drill, open the HSIF 2017 India app. Our next question is, do you think manufacturing firms have a huge potential for improvement in their bottom line if they leverage the IT-OT convergence? What are your thoughts on this? Yes or no? So let's see, we've got 80% say yes, 20% say no. With that, it's over to you, Sunanda.
So as engaging as this panel has been, unfortunately, we're running completely out of time. So I'd like to get closing comments. Let me start with you, Feroz. In your mind, in one word, the biggest challenge and the biggest benefit when it comes to IoT and OT convergence?
Biggest challenge is probably the rate of adoption and the capabilities required for it. I think opportunity, the one word I would say is tremendous. Yes.
Mr. Ranganath, in one line, you were just talking about the last mile connectivity and the problems there. In one line, how do you think those last mile connectivity issues can really be fixed?
So the primary emphasis should be on executing the technical aspect of the entire digital map. That's it.
Okay. Vinod, since Infosys works very closely with the government on several projects, maybe I can ask you in one line to also talk to us this evening about how IT and OT can be used more effectively in PPP projects.
Today, using, especially in the income tax department after the demonetization, the number of people who are going to probably file returns is going to increase enormously. And then the user experience everybody needs to have should be very good if that has to go forward and people adapt to this.
Okay, that's a very interesting thought, Binod. Russell, I'm going to let you have the last word and talk to us about policy framework.
I think it's going to have a massive impact. And I'll give you, and one of the reasons why is because the government has put up its hand and said, we're going to have over 100 smart cities, we're going to back India's innovation, this is going to be part of our agenda. If there really is the policy behind that will, and you've got the largest democracy in the world here, you already have stamped a massive presence from an IT perspective on the world stage. If government policy backs up that desire, then India will be if not the leading IoT country. But it does very much depend on policy following through intention.
All right, gentlemen, thank you all very much for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.